It's me. Hi. Hello. Welcome to my channel. Hi, hello. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage. I'm kidding. Hello. It's your maybe a little less favorite person, or a little more favorite person, a little less unfavorite person on the internet. I went to the card store today, and there was an Eve corner. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's the tarot of the She and the William Blake tarot and the Edgar Allan Poe tarot. I don't know if Eve has the Edgar Allan Poe, but I know she has the tarot of the She. And I also know that she has the William Blake tarot. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I know a YouTuber who uses these. And the card shop owner was like, really? Like, oh my gosh, like send me her channel. And I was like, why? He was like, I just like to see how people read and stuff. I was like, so if you are my local card shop owner and you stumble upon this video, hello. Welcome to my channel. If you're not, then don't worry about it. Business as usual. One second. Sorry. Okay. So anyway, yes. I believe nothing you hear and only one half that you see. There is so much wisdom and relevancy in this quote. Better to trust your gut when deciphering fact from fiction. Who is this? The Two of Quills. Ooh. I just opened the deck. I'm like, I love Edgar Allan Poe probably as much as the majority of people. I'm not like obsessed. But I can appreciate his body of work. I can appreciate the few Edgar Allan poems that I know. Ooh, she's a little stiff. She's a little stiff. Oh, okay, there we go. Already. Honestly, who is this? Is it Rockpool Oracle? Ooh. Is that? No, it's not. Where did this come from? It's on the card back. Um, the finish on the side reminds me of the Occult Tarot and the Angel Tarot. And I think they're about the same size. See, they have like little poems on it. It's the poems that got me. It's the poem. That's the real. I was like, okay, yeah, it's selling me. It sold me on the poems. Um, I think Rockpool Oracle did those. No, they seem like they might be a little bigger. Yeah, these are definitely bigger. I think maybe a little wider. Um, but anyway, I'm just gonna pull a few of these and see what's up. I was going to look at current aspects and pull a card for each planet in the for each planet and see, and then pull one for the aspect and just see what's up. But I'm like, potentially a lot of work. I was also trying to think of like what could I pair with these. Y'all know I don't really do like unboxing videos because I just unbox the cards and I use them, and what comes out, and I'll read the book to see if I like the book. The Four of Quills has made an appearance. Impake requiescat. I know Pake, Pax Pacus is peace. In peace there is rest. Question mark. To requiesce. Four of quills. I'm assuming quills are swords. Yeah, quills are swords. Cute. The cask of Amontillado. Amontillado. It's the last line in the cask of Amontillado and is Latin for may he slash she rest in peace. That makes sense. In peace. I was like, in peace there is rest. Rest in peace. Um, when someone dies, my intention is on the word rest and the need for peace. The Four of Quills is all about the need for a long rest. The image of the boat is a nod to Harry Clark's illustration from the premature burial. Upright, time for rest, meditation, time out, retreat, and vacation. What I like about this card is in peace there is rest, but there is also movement because it's a boat on the water. So it feels like falling into a beautiful, gorgeous flow because it's one that the person can just like go along with. Let's clarify this. Why not? And by clarify this, I mean let's get another card. I could probably like pull these. I wonder if I could do story time with these. I mean, obviously. Ooh, the star. The star and the king of paws. Okay. Pentacles? Question mark. Three of wells is obviously wells are water, paws have to be pinnacles, paws are pinnacles. That is super interesting because I was talking about my initials earlier today with the car shop owner. And I was like, my initials spell the word paw, and I think it would be hilarious. Or I have a loose preference, an extremely loose preference. Um, for my initials becoming pause someday because I think that'd be cute, right? And then here's the King of Paws. So the star, when the light was extinguished, she covered me warm. When the light was extinguished, she covered me warm, and she prayed to the angels to keep me from harm, to the Queen of the Angels to shield me from harm. I'm watching an anime right now. I think I might have referenced it, but this makes me think of that anime. In that anime, there's some crazy anime TV family drama that probably isn't too far off the money for those who are born into like extreme wealth or who are born into families of prominence. Um, but anyway, there's this whole setup to take out certain members of the family to keep them from inheriting something, question mark. The inheritance bit is like, I mean, obviously, I guess they have to be like a threat to the other person who wants to inherit it if they were targeted. But it doesn't seem like they're not even like next in line. Um, but anyway, there was a fire that like someone was intentionally set on fire. There's a spirit that is like driven basically mad by her desire to protect a set of twins. And it makes me think of her. It makes me think of the spirit that never stopped wanting to protect that which she wanted to protect in life. Probably driven mad by her inability to physically and tangibly like keep them safe because she was a ghost at that point. When the light was extinguished, she covered me warm, and she prayed to the angels to keep me from harm, to the Queen of the Angels to shield me from harm. Who is the Queen of the Angels? Then we have the King of Paws, a troop of echoes whose sweet duty was but to sing in voices of surpassing beauty, the will and wisdom, the wit and wisdom of their king. So there's definitely, I love the healing of the star with this Four of Swords energy. I think too, because there was a mention of how like soundly asleep she is as she's being carried by the water, but then there's this prayer to the Queen of the Angels to keep one from harm and to bring warmth in the absence of light. And then we have the King of Paws, a troop of echoes whose sweet duty was but to sing in voices of surpassing beauty. Obviously, like a choir of angels type of vibe, right? The wit and wisdom of their king. A troop of echoes whose sweet duty was but to sing the wit and wisdom of their king. This makes me think of the quote of a friend is the one who sings the song of your heart when you've forgotten the lyrics. This is feeling like it's almost like the King of Paws is the destination. Excuse me, that this Four of Swords is drifting to. It's also interesting that it's in the Four of Swords instead of the Six. Let's see, let's check the book. Seven of Candles, no. The Star, there's the Sun. When the light was extinguished, sorry, if I can read today. When the light was extinguished, she covered me warm, and she prayed to the angels to keep me from harm, to the Queen of the Angels to shield me from harm. For Annie. The star is one of my favorite cards in the tarot. Some people look at specific cards in a deck before adding that deck to their collection. The star card is that card for me. When I was in the midst of cancer treatment, the star made several appearances to me and reminded me that whatever the outcome, I was surrounded by love. The poem for Annie is about a dying man's revelations on death, rebirth, and love as his long suffering comes to an end. The poem is about a dying man's revelations on death, rebirth, and love, and then the King of Paws is here. Well, that just got increasingly solemn. I mean, I guess it's the Edgar Allan Poe deck, so I shouldn't be surprised that there's this wicked turn. Because now all of a sudden this has become about loss. Girl, I thought I wanted that. I thought I wanted this deck, and now I'm like, oh, something smells delicious. My mom was like, hey, you better enjoy these home cooked meals while you can get them because pretty soon you'll be cooking for yourself. I was like, no, I won't. I'll just come over here and eat and then go home. Everything is moving so quickly. Um, I guess what's interesting about this is that it's fanciful thought to, but it's the reflections of a dying man. So I guess it's a question of when we reach that point, what do we regret more? Even if where we are now, if we're going through like an ego death or a period of transformation, rebirth, renaissance, there you go. How do we look back on things? Because there's that, like, you know, when you get to the end, you regret the things that you didn't do rather than the things that you did do. I guess it depends again on like what you do and how it works out, or what you didn't do and how it worked out. Um, but I guess it's different. If someone is dying, then they're probably like ill. And so it puts a completely different context or a spin on lived life. Because I guess it was like, if someone's reaching the end of their life, it's interesting that they pray to an angel to shield someone from harm, because you would think there is a line of thought that it's like, there are certain challenges that we go through in life, but after we overcome them, we experience some kind of victory. And it's like without those challenges, we may have never been pushed to do, claim, or be the things that we did in our lifetimes. But when it comes to something like an illness, when it comes to, well, I guess dying, you can also like, it can be an age thing. Um, but when it comes to an illness, that's something that is completely different. So it puts me in the mind frame of like there are certain pains and traumas that there are certain occurrences in life that can serve to build us up in some way because of something that we do or don't do after that occurrence. But there are other things that happen to us in life that there is no silver lining for, not necessarily. And of course, most specifically, Rob, formerly Odinson, comes to my mind. It's like there are some like crappy stuff that happens. It's just crappy. There is no positive. Like you can't polish this turd into a diamond. It's doo doo. I think because it is the King of Pentacles too, there's an understanding of the place of physical possessions. While we are living our lives, they matter because, we want to be comfortable, we want to be entertained, we want to be healthy, we want a lot of stuff. But when we transition, they don't, because we don't take those things with us. So this could honestly, like, again, going back to the Four of Swords, it could be someone who is like downsizing, or it could be someone who is like releasing a lot of their earthly attachments, um, because of news that they find out. And it's like their priorities shift from like getting and acquiring and doing this to like, well, I just want those that I leave behind to be okay. Wow, we've been having some heavy ones come out lately. Bottom of the deck is strength. A feeling for which I have no name has taken possession of my soul. Oh, look, that's the cat. This because there's a cat and because there's talking about possession at the bottom of the deck, this could be something that like doesn't even like I'm surprised it came out this way too. The Four of Swords, the Star. I mean, I guess like the energies of the Four of Swords, the Star, and the King of Pentacles is very different than like how the poems went. I'll be right back. Believe in me. All right, I'm back. Not that you can see me yet. So it was percolating in my brain um, while I was away. My mom needed my taste buds, and then my stomach needed some food. This could be like a passed on loved one or an ancestor, but in a way where like they wouldn't want you to suffer as they have suffered. And it feels like a successfully answered prayer, which is interesting for the ancestral narrative that I often hear or that I often come across. Because I feel like it can be easy. Everyone's ancestral story is different, first of all. Um, it can be easy to look at the things that may be unresolved within our bloodlines, or it can be easy to look at the things that carry or seem to carry from generation to generation. But what we don't necessarily see is all of the things that our parents and their parents and so on to the ancestral lines, the things that they've actually healed, worked through, and resolved. Things that they might have in their lifetimes done to the point where, like, you don't have to worry about it in your current incarnation. I think a lot of times is again like it's easy to see one thing and to not necessarily know the other because if you don't have that struggle, how are you to know that it was ever a thing within your bloodline, right? How would you know if it was ever an obstacle on your ancestral path if you had an ancestor that actually like took care of it? Um, this one doesn't necessarily feel like resolves. Well, it kind of does. It does. It feels like an ancestor who prayed that like their children or their children's children wouldn't have to deal with or face something. And so maybe with the four of quills and the star, it's like there are certain things that are already done for you. In those ways, you just drift through life completely blissfully unaware that those were ever any obstacles that may have been sort of like that there may have ever been a blockage in that river, like dams or blockages along a river, and like you just flow through all of them because you had an ancestor or a few ancestors that took care of that. For the other things, for the rest of it, there's this angelic or ancestral presence for the things that like they couldn't do in their own lifetime. They had to just leave it to their successors. Even us ourselves, we might not necessarily do every single thing that we want to do multi generationally within our own life, but with what we leave, and it's like it's a collective and a familial ancestry. Um, with what we leave, like our families and what we leave the world, someone else can take that on and take it further. Because we get relatively short incarnations, and quite a bit of that is like learning, just like being a kid, right? Being a kid, growing, maturing, and then it's like we're constantly growing and maturing. Um, but in that sense, if it is an ancestor, it almost feels like you know how we have like guardian angels. It's like there's an angel assigned to like families, or there was someone, an ancestor, a parent, maybe you to your descendants, that had like a particular guardian angel that was particularly fond of their assignment or that like really took it to heart that whatever that person prayed for their family, for warmth in the dark, and to be protected from harm. Like that guardian is still like doing it. Again, it feels like in ways that we wouldn't even necessarily be aware of because we're asleep in this on this slab of wood that's just floating down the river. It's very much like you don't know all the things that your guardians and guides protect you from because they protect you from it because it doesn't happen. All right, Edgar, Eddie, Gar. Oop. Let's get into another one. Get into another one. They are like kind of glossy, which is interesting. I don't have too many glossy decks. Oop. Bottom of the deck is the Wheel of Fortune. Never to suffer what never to have been blessed. All right, come through. It's giving me. Who are they? The Norns. It's giving me Norns because of the spinning wheel. I guess it could also be the Fates. Clotho, Atropos, and Lachesis. Clotho spins, Lachesis measures, Atropos cuts, question mark. Maybe it's more them. Well, because there's no tapestry being woven. I guess that's an interesting distinction. In Greco-Roman, the fates like just like measure out a yarn, a string, but in Norse, like it's an entire tapestry. And then there's the question of the distinction, if there is one, between like fate and destiny. Interesting. The two cards that came out, Justice and the Ace of Paws. A wrong is unredressed. What? A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed, repressed. Girl, hold up. I need to turn up the lights. I don't know why it's so hard. Like, I saw these in the store and I'm just like reading it. I bring them home. I'm struggling. Can y'all tell that I have the light set to spring and to like more slowly rotate through the colors? Can you tell? Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's turn this up a little bit. There we go. That might help me. We'll see. Yeah, a wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unrepressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. I'm trying to read that one again. It is equally unrepressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. This is melting my brain. My brain cannot handle this poem. It is equally unrepressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. I think it's this like this present tense that immediately shifts into the past that's like throwing me. Fails to make himself, as if we're talking about like a more present moment, felt completely in the past, as such to him who has done the wrong, who has done more in the past. What's that past participle or whatever? Present participle, past participle. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unrepressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. Okay. I can read this 5 more times and Ace of Paws for the most wild, yes, most homely narrative which I am about to pen, I neither expect nor solicit belief. Why is this like stuff is about to get real crazy? I don't expect you to believe me, and I'm not going to make myself seem credible. Is this like miracle territory? I mean, the Wheel of Fortune is here. What did it say? Never to suffer would never to have been blessed. Never to suffer. We're talking about justice and what justice feels like more so than how it's sort of brought about with this confusing AF poem. Tenny, a wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. That part feels like, what does it mean to be unredressed? This is purely my girl. I am not a literary genius. I am not that well read. Okay. I used to love to read until I got video games. um, a wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. That feels like it's like a wrong is not made right when we are hell bent on vindication and retribution and stuff like that. It makes me think of the strength card, how it mentions something possessing like one soul. Like we can become possessed by a need for some kind of vindication, retribution, vengeance. What's the word? Revenge. Girl, when like we're sort of overcome, it's like we're consumed by the thing. And then when we become consumed by it, the wrong is unaddressed. Because it's like on the grand scheme of our life, it's not necessarily for us to become so obsessed over that one thing. The Wheel of Fortune it's here. It's like for that to sort of turn into something else. Never to suffer is to have never been blessed. Which is kind of, I guess this is the theme in the Edgar Allan Poe tarot today. Because the last one was like, there are some traumatic things that happen to us that we grow from. There are some crappy things that happen to us, and they're just like bad, terrible things that happen. There's nothing to necessarily break down or to, like, we're not going to polish that turd into a diamond, right? It is equally unrepressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. When the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. Girl, I'm gonna read the book and I'm gonna hope it saves me because maybe I just need to see it printed slightly bigger because it's like I almost get it, but there's that tense. It's that tense shift that just like completely throws me. And I love typically a tense shift. Love the passive voice. I think this was my favorite card in the deck to create. I find the classic depiction in mini decks boring and wanted something a bit different. I love the idea of Poe swinging the pendulum of justice. He emerges from the mouth of a skull. The skull has beautiful symbolism, which, despite its often scary associations with death, is positively revered by many cultures. For many, the skull represents wisdom and protection. The open mouth reminds us to be aware of what we speak. Is it truthful and factual? While the traditional justice card can refer to the law, Poe's quote on ethics reminds us of life's delicate balance that often determines matters of fate and justice. Balance, fairness, equality, the law, harmony in contracts, legal situations, upright are the key words. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unrepressed when the avenger fails. It's another quote from the cask of Amontillado. I feel like I'm not like literate enough. I feel like I'm not well versed enough in the world of Poe to have purchased this deck. Maybe it'll be my introduction. It is equally unrepressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. Well, an unrepressed wrong is a wrong that's committed again. So I guess that's like the best my brain can do is like when we become the very person who wronged us to someone else, then the wrong is unrepressed. It comes back to life. But this time we were the ones who did it. This is so much on our internal state when it comes apparently with the Wheel of Fortune to a certain suffering. The Eight of Wells is behind the Wheel of Fortune. It's better to move on. It's better to move on than it is to dwell and to sink into and to become so overly identified with what wrong has occurred to us that we don't allow ourselves anymore, that we don't allow ourselves any better, or that we become obsessed with living this life to make somebody else jealous or whatever. Like that's something that it doesn't blow my mind because I'm 30 years old and I've lived with humans long enough to understand the ways that humans operate. But it's like people who will be like, "Oh, like you did this to me, you did that to me. I'm going to go out and show you what you're missing out on." But the whole impetus for you going out and hitting the gym and getting fit, or for you changing up your style, or for you getting this job and getting all this money and taking all these trips is because you like the suffering was your impetus to actually do it. Like basically, you wouldn't have done any of that if you two had stayed together. So that person would have never gotten that thing. You only did it to try to make them jealous. So either way, they wouldn't have gotten it. They didn't get it when you were together, you weren't doing it. And when you break up, now all of a sudden you want to do it to show them what they were are missing out on, but they weren't getting that from you because you weren't giving it. So what did they really miss? I saw some video on social media about it in the not too distant. I was gonna say the not too distant future, and the not too distant. This card has my whole sense of time effed up, and the not too distant past. But it's like everything becomes about that one person, or everything becomes about that one event. And again, because of the Wheel of Fortune, it's like that's not. It's not supposed to be our destination, or it's not supposed to be so centered and centric to all that we do. And so, because of that, I kind of love the attitude of the Ace of Paws coming out after that. For the most wild, yes, most yet most homely narrative which I am about to pen, I neither expect nor solicit belief. It's like it's not for you. If you did me wrong, if you did me dirty, like I'm doing all of this for me to get me to live the life that I want. It's not about making you jealous. It's not about showing what you missed out on. Honestly, and again, like it's co-signed by the Eight of Cups behind this Wheel of Fortune. Quoth the Raven, nevermore. Never to suffer would never to have been blessed. Quoth the Raven, nevermore. The quoth the Raven, nevermore is again, it's like never to suffer in that way, to be blessed, and to, never again. But like that unrepressed wound, that unrepressed wrong, it's like every time we revisit it to motivate us in this way or to motivate us in that way, it's like the wrong is being committed over and over and over again. But at that point, we are kind of doing it to ourselves. There's also something about this, like it looks like a bear to me. The shadow of the open mouth looks like a bear, like the silhouette of a bear. And then there's Edgar Allan Poe. Bears hibernate. I actually saw the bear in the Lenormand last time I used it. I think it was at the bottom of the deck. Almost got another Lenormand today, but I didn't anyway. They're like, there's a Santa Muerte Lenormand. There's a Santa Muerte Oracle deck that's like heavily tied to the tarot. I was like, what? I don't think the Santa Muerte or Lenormand was Los Scarabeo though, so I think that one might just anyway. It's fine. Oh, and look, it's a bear paw. It's a bear paw and a bear claw mark. But anyway, the bear's like hibernation. It's like there is a long time. They hibernate through the winter. They go into caves or whatever. So it is like a time of darkness. And then under this Eight of Cups is the Nine of Cups. It was a voluptuous scene, that masquerade. This makes it seem like it's like when you reach the point that, and that it's like it's in this energy too, not this energy, it's in this energy too. Where it's like there's a realization. It's like the wrong happens and it gets you to realize something. And then maybe you realize that you never would have gotten what it is that you now want where you were. Or maybe you just realize that like there wasn't a capability to sort of give that or to receive that. And so once you recognize that, then it's like you do all of the things to align to what you wish to manifest in your life. And the further you get from it, like with the masquerade, it's like you realize that even if everyone was being 100% their authentic self in that moment, it's just like it becomes this past version of you. It becomes this previous thing. It becomes this almost distant memory. And like that was the masquerade, because now with the Wheel of Fortune and the distance of the Eight of Cups and of receiving that Nine of Cups, receiving this, and again it's here. I'm gonna pin a story. What did it say? For the most wild yet most homely narrative which I'm about to pin, I neither expect nor solicit belief. Like that just speaks to the magnitude of difference between the ground covered in this Eight of Cups energy. The Eight of Cups makes distance from one thing that didn't work out. It's very heavily emotionally tied to the Nine of Cups wish fulfillment through the Wheel of Fortune, through the turning of events. Never to suffer would never to have been blessed. It's more like to suffer is a blessing and blah blah blah. It's like suffering in itself is not the blessing. It's what you do after that's the blessing. It's when we decide to pursue differently, to do things differently, but we decide that for our good, not to spite someone else. And it may start as spiting someone else, and that's fine. But eventually, it should turn into like, I want to do this for me. Can it sort of like, these are the things that they never would have let me do, and we never did this together, and they never whatever? It's like, yeah. But like, if you just like tweak the perspective a little bit, now you can do the things that you want to do. So then it's not about spiting someone else. It's just about you living your best life and doing the things that you can do to make that happen. From the outside, they probably look very similar. But internally, which was the question of ethics that this poem or whatever brought up, The internal motivation is what really matters. You're doing it because you love you and because you want better for you. You're not doing it to spite somebody else who honestly may not even care at that time, at that point in time. Right? It's like y'all fall out, the other person moves on, and you're like, why aren't you looking at me? You're supposed to be jealous. It's like, girl, I don't know. I guess it depends on what you want, though. All right, Eddie. I'll do one last one just to look at a few more cards. Oh, was there like a spread in here? Oh gosh, it's already been an hour. I'm like, oh, let me do a Celtic cross. Hoth the Raven, nevermore. Does it really go? Oh, it does go. King, Queen, Knight. Page. Pages are high in this deck? I don't know. I might read pages as high in this deck. Especially for Edgar Allan Poe. Being in a space to start anew can be the most difficult thing sometimes. It's easy to be comfortable with the path that we're on and to just go further and further and further. Sometimes the difficult thing is to walk away and to seek what it is that we truly desire, to be open to receive what it is that we truly want. And I am not necessarily seeing ace for red, so I guess I'm just gonna attempt a 10 card Celtic Cross, and it'll be. Or how am I gonna do this? Sure. All right. First card out is the Knight of Wales. As a thing of art, nothing could be more admirable than the painting itself. But it could have been neither the execution of the work nor the immortal beauty of the countenance, which had so suddenly and so vehemently moved me. Obviously, a lot of these I'm gonna be like, oh, wait. Crossing that is the Six of Quills. Oh, this one's on the water too. On the back of a swan. We called it the River of Silence, for there seemed to be a lushing influence in its flow. A hushing, not the lush. I have not consumed any alcohol today. We called it the River of Silence, for there seemed to be a hushing influence in its flow. Okay, Knight of Spells that ain't saying. Knight of Wells that ain't saying nothing. And the underlying is the Seven of Paws. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I didn't even show the Knight of Wells, but that's fine. I'll hold it up at the end. In the past position is the Empress, the angels whispering to one another, confined among their burning terms of love, none so devotional as that of mother. And the overarching, overhead, crowning energy, the Three of Paws. There's a Ten of Pentacles between the underlying and the overhead, which is gorgeous. With these materials and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. In the future, the High Priestess. Let my heart be still a moment and this mystery explore. Empress in the past, High Priestess in the future. You in the position Five of Paws. Just as the day dawns to the friendless and houseless beggar who roams the streets throughout the long, desolate winter night, just so tardily, just so wearily, just so cheerfully came back the light of the soul to me. There's the sweet spot. Just as the day dawns to the friendless and houseless beggar who roams the streets throughout the long, desolate winter night, just so tardily, just so wearily, just so cheerily, came back the light of the soul to me. And the environment is the Knight of Quills, the object, truth, or the satisfaction of the intellect, and the object, passion, or the excitement of the heart, are, although attainable to a certain extent, in poetry, far more readily attainable in prose. While attainable in poetry, they're far more readily attainable in prose. Knight of Quills. And we'll do hopes and fears separately because I don't do outcomes really. And the hopes is the Five of Wells. The skies, they were ashen and sober. The leaves, they were crisp and they were withering and sere. It was night in the lonesome October of my most immemorial year. And the hopes, okay. And the fears, the Two of Candles. Suddenly, a corner has turned, or suddenly a corner was turned. A blaze of light burst open our sight. Why does the hope read like a fear and the fear read like a hope? Bottom of the deck is the Emperor. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. Okay. Knight of Quills and the current energy are the Knight of Wells, Knight of Cups. And the current energy, there's a certain something that wants to be expressed. The challenge is the Six of Swords, which could be like, how do I communicate it? How do I do it? It feels so unlike anything that we've ever necessarily done before that it may like seem out of character. Or it may be unlike anything that we've ever experienced that we don't know how to necessarily approach it. And the underlying, it's like you've been building towards this, you've been cultivating a certain ability, you've been gathering things that you need. And the overhead crowning energy is the Three of Pentacles. Like this moment too will serve to benefit in some way, or it is pivotal, it is key. It's like this pivotal stone in the foundation, something upon which many more things will be built that will culminate in something maybe grander than you ever dreamed or planned or hoped because it incorporates others. This is an energy of like between again, there's a 10 of Pentacles here. And it's like you've done so well in navigating yourself to the point that you are. But now it's time to network. Now it's time to open up. Now it's time to work with others. It's almost like you've done all that you can do on your own. And the past is the Empress, and the future is the High Priestess. It feels like you've really, if you take a moment to pause and take stock of your life, you may have accomplished something that you had wanted to for a while. And if that thing isn't accomplished, then again, it's like you have excellently navigated your path. Even if it's fraught with anxiety and worry and fear, the resources that you have, the things that you have available at your disposal, I forget the word, girl. The thing attained it. But moving forward into the future, it's the high priestess. So maybe it's a little bit more vague. Maybe it's a little bit more nebulous. Maybe it's a lot less concrete than it has been up until this point. Maybe you have a lot of like intuitions, thoughts, dreams, and ideas. But as it being your challenge, go for it. Do your best. You sit in the position of the Five of Pentacles. Pause. And with the poem on this, it's like, again, sort of pulling off of the last one with the Wheel of Fortune and Justice. You finding yourself on the outside, you being on the outside of certain situations, has in your isolation, in your perceived isolation, or in your moments of aloneness, it has revealed certain things to you. Especially like if you were in a dynamic and then that dynamic ceased being. It gave you the time to see the truth of something, which is probably again why it's not so important on the wrong that was done or the person who did the wrong in the past. There's something more that it reveals. Just so cheerily came back the light of the soul to me. So as drearily and as you went through life, that's how cheerily the light of the soul returned to self. The environment is the Knight of Quills. It feels like the environment is moving, going to be happening. This is why it's so important to do your best to overcome the challenge of speaking. I think that's also what makes it particularly challenging, though, because this five pause energy, it feels like you may not, it's almost like you may be accustomed to not being listened to. So it's almost like, well, what does it matter anyway? But if you don't say anything, then how are people supposed to know what you want? If you don't communicate and subsequently enforce a boundary, how are people necessarily to know that you feel like you're being taken advantage of? Some things are blatant, some things are obvious, some things not so much. But it's almost like those who speak are receiving, those who ask are getting. So to continue to feel like Five of Pentacles and Five of Cups, it's like, well, are you asking? Again, with that Knight of Cups, Knight of Wells at the center of this, Knights are all about action. So it is like for you to do things, but it's for you to do things that align with what you want and who you are. Again, it's like you've done a great job of accumulating resources and you've done a great job of navigating your own healing journey personally. Now it's time to open up. Now it's time to work with other people. With that Three of Pentacles in the overarching. The hope is the Five of Wells. And the fear is the Two of Wands. It's like me being the weirdo that I am. I get it. But it's like you hope to be rejected or you hope to be disappointed of you're afraid of getting your hopes up, which is why you hope to be disappointed. It's very much like if I set the bar low, then if it works out, I'll be surprised. And if it doesn't, then at least I won't be hurt. But it's like, honestly, If it doesn't work out, you're still going to be hurt. You're still going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed either way. It's not like setting the bar low effectively keeps anyone from experiencing disappointment. Now, is there an added additional weight to that if you like set the bar higher? Yes. If you dare to dream and it doesn't come true, yeah. But that disappointment, the root of that disappointment is going to be there anyway. There's something very nothing ventured, nothing gained about this, but the Emperor is as well at the bottom of the deck. Because the Emperor is at the bottom of the deck, um, there is an energy here that's like you've gotten really good at like using your Empress energy. You've gotten really good at being that like receptive, divine feminine, but or vice versa. But you're entering like an emperor divine period. And it feels like that's here because it might be a modality or it may be a way of being, it may be a way of appearing that you aren't necessarily accustomed to. So you is able necessarily to predict how things will sort of be or how things will work out. It's almost like, when things come to yes or no or whatever, it's one thing. But as you go out and as you pursue, as you do, what is it? It's like back in the day when I used to watch America's Next Top Model. Are they like, and they would go to like different, them like when everything comes to you and you just have to like filter in that way. So just as this is like, or just as this can be like you opening up to work with other people in harmonious, cohesive ways, it could also be you expanding your skill set, you getting comfortable with another side of yourself, you doing the legwork, you balancing your own internal polarity by experiencing life on the other side. And maybe that's the thing that you hadn't necessarily had too much luck with in the past. And that's why, because as gorgeous as like the underlying and the past and even the future and the overarching, like as gorgeous as the heart of the Celtic Cross is, like the truth comes out, like, or the challenge reveals itself really in like you, the environment, and then your hopes and fears. So yeah, I didn't even show you cards one last time. Knight of Wells, Six of Quills, Seven of Paws. Edgar Allan Poe Tarot. Feel free to pause it. Feel free to Google or watch somebody else use these. The Empress, the Three of Paws, and the High Priestess. I hope I communicated that well. Like the High Priestess is secretive or as elusive or as vague as she does, again, because the Emperor isn't necessarily something that you're used to being or necessarily something that you're comfortable with. So your ability to forecast and predict and your sensitivity to like the accurate, your ability to discern may be stronger. It's more divine feminine related, and it may be weaker when it's more divine masculine related because of how you feel about embodying that energy or because of how you feel about other people that you identify as embodying that energy. It's like there's a wider window for like doubt and all kinds of things to creep in and start to like distort your ability to discern what it is that the high priestess is like coming through, is sending through. Then it's the Knight of Quills and the Five of Paws. The Two of Candles and the Five of Wells. We got a magician. I didn't even notice that. On the sword instead of the shield or the heart of the Celtic cross. Five Paws, Knight of Quills, Two of Candles, Five of Wells. All four elements make appearance. So again, with that Seven of Pentacles Empress in the past, like everything that you need is you have it at your disposal. It may also be figuring out like what is needed at what different points in time and how much is needed. That may be a more natural occurring part of the Emperor. That is sort of your in the shadows of being integrated, but not really, because who's gonna Three of Pentacles with the Empress if it's not an Emperor? Other Empresses, sure, but um, that'll be something that you learn as you practice being an Emperor. How much fire, how much water, how much air, how much earth, to show up in a way that is, and not like, I am gonna get a final card though. All right. Ooh. Final card from the Edgar Allan Poe Tarot. I almost have a feeling like it's gonna be strength. Oh, that's it's too many. I'll read them and then I'll put them back and keep shuffling. The Tower. While I gazed, this fissure rapidly widened. There came a fierce breath of the whirlwind. The entire orb of the satellite burst at once upon my sight. My brain reeled as I saw the mighty walls rushing asunder. Oh, snap. Look at the image. It's almost like Here is Johnny. It's almost like Ready or Not, here comes the sun, do do do, and you're like hissing because it's like, oh, it's been so dark for so long. Somebody shut the blinds, close the curtains. Death. The boundaries which divide life from death are at best shadowy and vague. Who shall say where the one ends and where the other begins? And the Queen of Wales. No guile disguised the fervor of love which animated her heart, and she examined with me its inmost recesses as we walked together in the valley of the many-colored grass. As we walked together, as we walked together in the valley of the many-colored grass, sorry, with its inmost recesses. There's something very revealing about this. This makes me think of is it a bustle? Is that what you call them? Like the wire thing that people would put under dresses to like floof them out. But it's like here's the wire of the bustle, but there's no like cloth, so like you get to see what her body actually looks like. There's something that's almost like unladylike for the times, but in modern times, it's like, well, you can't see nothing. But her completely head to toe cloth undergarments. Um, I mean, we get ankles and arms and elbows and everything, knees sometimes. I intend to put up with nothing that I can put down. Temperance and the moon. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams. Aw. But again, that's too much. Yeah, it's a time to be vulnerable. Maybe that speaks to greater and greater alignment that's happening in the world. Girl, everybody's talking about manifestation. Everybody's like doing all kinds of stuff. I'm like, okay, this is where we are. But again, it's like, how are we as people? How are we to know if someone or something aligns with us if they never communicate their truth and their authenticity? And likewise, how are others to know that we align with them if we never communicate our truth and our authenticity? So it's not necessarily like speak now or forever hold your peace, but it's like that's the Knight of Swords, the Knight of Quills in the environment. That's why the Six of Swords challenges that, like, communicate, speak, say something so it's done. Right? If you love some super, the Three of Pentacles mentioned the niche. If you love some super obscure, like if you love some super obscure whatever that you don't meet too many people who know about, and you meet somebody who is very like compatible with you, who is also as into that as you are, but neither one of you brings it up, then it's that movie where you're watching it and it's that rom-com where the characters never get together. But since you're watching the movie, you get to see how he feels and you get to see how she feels, and you know that they care about each other, but they never tell each other. So they just like live their life apart. I mention that because it was a swan in the Six of Swords, and it was two people. The wheel, is that my final card? It's two cards. I'll take it. I'm ready to be done. I'm hungry. The wheel, again, never to suffer, would never to have been blessed. And the two of only one half that you see, which is like, I end it with what I opened. It worked out. That's a full circle moment, if you will. Bottom of the deck is, I could use this with the Crow Tarot. The Ten of Quills, weep now or nevermore. I think weeping, and the divine doesn't punish us for weeping. And it draws me back to that Five of Cups, and it does get me to see it in a little bit of a different way. Um, it's like maybe you feel that you've been doing so much work, so consistently, so nonstop, with the Seven of Pentacles in the underlying and the Empress in the past. And it's almost like with the Five of Wells in your hopes, it's like you just want a moment to be able to breathe and to be able to grieve everything that you've lost. And that's perfectly fine. Like, that's okay. Take the time. It's dangerous when we spend too long there, when we become consumed by grief. And there's a difference between like grieving and being consumed by grief. Um, it's a difference that you will find for yourself, because there's no one who can tell us how to grieve, when to grieve, and for how long to grieve. It's an internal justice card. It's upset at the wrongs that we experience, but we shouldn't be consumed by it to the point where we don't allow ourselves to experience anything more. That we don't allow ourselves to actually experience justice. And it's a tricky, and I'm sure intricate balance. I was going to say an intimate balance. It's a tricky and intricate balance, I'm sure. And again, like, there's no real timer on any of this, but it's just like when we reach that point of when we want more in the case of justice, or when it comes time for us to let joy and happiness into our lives as well, in the case of that Five of Wells. And we can do multiple things at once. We are complex human beings, right? You can be happy and overjoyed at how things are working out in your life. Or, like, let's say you get a promotion at work. So there's like movement in that realm of your life. But let's say, like, you lose someone or you go through a breakup or something else happens. Like, you can also grieve the thing that you lost, and it doesn't take away from like what you gained by your at work. Not only are we complex creatures and beings who are capable of holding multiple emotions at once, we also experience life in many different facets in many different arenas all at the same time, simultaneously. Yeah, that's fine. Um, so yeah, this is what I got for you. That was the Edgar Allan Poe Tarot. If you want to watch a full unboxing, you're gonna have to go to somebody else's channel or find another video, because I don't do that here apparently. But I hope whenever you see this, I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and way, you find in a way that is clear to you. A way that is unmistakable. The best, right? Um, and until next time, I hope that you're able to keep on keeping on. Even when it seems dark and difficult, I hope that winds of the jungle, that you give yourself the time that you need to adjust, but that you don't run from it or reject it. Because you deserve better. I hope you believe that, especially if you deserve better. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.